So today I'm joined by Mark from 2 Cents Rugby, one of the best rugby creators you'll find on the internet. There's a link down in the description. Go check out his channel. Most of you probably know who he is already. Welcome back to the channel, Mark.
Mark, man, how are you doing, sir? I kind of hesitate to ask you how you are after those quarterfinals, but I will still ask. How are you feeling, man?
I'm good, actually. I've been to, I've actually been in the stadium before when we've got dumped out of a World Cup in France in 2007, and that was terrible. And we didn't even get to quarterfinal that time. That was the pool stages when France and Argentina went through. So, and I lived in Japan during the 2019 World Cup when we got dumped out of the quarterfinals. But this one feels different. This one feels to me like 2013, the All Blacks' perfect year, where they beat Ireland in Dublin to seal that with that retaken kick right at the end. And that was heartbreak. Yep. But that game, after that game, I knew we would beat the All Blacks eventually. And after this quarterfinal, I feel like Ireland will, it's a matter of time before Ireland make a semi-final now. Whereas the past, it was hope. Whereas now, I think it's actually going to happen. So I think that's the big difference for me.
Yeah. I mean, it's been talked to death, but it's still worth saying, if not for the draw, absolutely that side makes a semi-final.
Yeah.
No doubt about it, if not for the draw.
Definitely, yeah. So before, we're going to talk a little bit about each of the games. Before we do, I want to ask you, so there were some fantastic quarterfinals. Do you think this was collectively the best set of quarterfinals we've ever seen at a Rugby World Cup?
I think so, man. I think so, because we didn't, every game was competitive. I know people have compared the Wales-Argentina game to the game that followed it and said, the quality wasn't at the same level. There was a lot more drop ball and whatnot, but ultimately it had all the drama that you want from a quarterfinal. It had a big comeback from 10 points behind. You had veterans coming off the bench and, having star moments. The Fiji-England game, which also didn't get the same press as the other two kind of bigger games. Also had huge dramas with Fiji coming back to tie it up.
Yeah.
I had a quick look. The last World Cup, we had New Zealand, Ireland, which was a blowout. You had England, Australia, which was a blowout. And South Africa, Japan, which was pretty comfortable. So there was only one, the Wales-France game, which was really tight.
That was tight.
The World Cup before that was pretty similar. New Zealand blew out France. Argentina, Ireland was a pretty lopsided scoreline. So this one, for every game to be that competitive, to be like a edgy a seat match. Yeah, I mean, World Rugby, as a lot of other people have kind of mentioned, have inadvertently, with that draw, created probably the best quarterfinal round we've ever seen.
Yeah, very true. One thing, just you talked about kind of the England and Wales versus the other two quarterfinals. I think you'd understand this reference. That for me, it felt like that the England and Wales, their quarterfinals were kind of your sea level. And then the other two were Champions Cup level in terms of knockout games. That's the way it felt to me in terms of intensity and just the quality as well of everything involved in it.
Yeah, I think so. They just felt like epic clashes. But I mean, I'm a rugby fan I can go down the street and watch club rugby here in New Zealand, and the quality's not going to be great, but I can enjoy it at various levels. So I will generally take a close game which is not at the highest level over a game which is one team is fantastic. Like a full stage Romania games, you know what I mean? To see a team get 80 points put on them, I don't enjoy that as much. Even if some of the skills are elite level and silky and whatnot, it's just not as much kind of,
Yeah, it's just that, especially as a neutral, that interest in who's actually going to win the game. You can admire the skills, but if there's 20 tries in a game, but it's always 15 or 20 points between the teams, there's no tension in it, and you already know who's going to win. So some people will just switch off before the end, but none of those games at the weekend, if you're watching, you would switch off because you didn't know who was going to win almost right to the death for them, and I think that was something special.
Right. It was one of the biggest complaints about the pool stage is that, compared to, I think, the last World Cup, maybe this pool stage wasn't as interesting. Barring that Portugal win in that final.
Yeah, that was really the only
Fiji.
shock of the pool stages.
Yeah, like even Fiji beating Australia wasn't like drastically shocking because of the form Fiji had pre-tournament and Australia not having had a win under Eddie.
Fiji were the highest ranked team on that side of the draw coming into the Rugby World Cup. So they, on that you would expect them to beat Australia, and they maybe underperformed in their pool. And in the end, they just about scraped out of it. But let's talk a little bit about Wales versus Argentina. So Wales, they get the great start, but then Argentina come back at them in that second half. So what were your thoughts on the game as a whole, really?
Yeah, I mean, some of those games just come down to those kind of key moments, don't they? And this is one of those ones where the Argentinians kind of had those key moments, like the Moroni tackle on Reece Zammit into touch.
Yeah.
Other times, maybe he scores that by Sam Costello with that pass. He's a young
that was
guy,
heartbreaking for him.
Heartbreaking for him, but it's a veteran who's the kind of guy who pinches it. So I mean, Moroni's a veteran, Sanchez is a veteran. That impact from the bench. I think the Argentinian squad is a little bit older on average than the Welsh squad. So
I think other than their props, maybe. Yeah. But those
sometimes it is that bit of experience, which is the difference.
True. And then talking about experience, Buffelli with those 2 penalties in the basically last 2 minutes of the first half, so that they didn't go in nilled at halftime as well, just kept them in it.
I think in that first half. Yeah. Wales needed a bigger lead based on how they'd kind of performed in the first half. But it was only 4 points at halftime.
Yeah. It was 10-6 at halftime, yeah. But they were looking at 10-0 until those last 2 minutes of the half. And that intercept just kind of killed the game. But like, it was 12 minutes to go in the game before Argentina, the Sclavi try, when they actually went ahead for like the first time. And it was, if on the scoreline it looks like it was a little bit more comfortable because of the intercept there at the end when Wales are kind of pushing to go in. But it was one thing on this, Wales going forward from here. How do you think they're actually going to do with Gatlin back now?
I think they've shown with the kind of departure of all the guys prior to the World Cup, Alan Wynne-Jones and Justin Tipuric and Reece Webb and whatnot, that there is that bit of extra depth in Wales, and they're changing that, or they've changed that eligibility criteria, right? So they'll be able to pick some of the kind of senior guys. They'll be able to go and chase a bit of the money towards the kind of, more senior end of their career. That's a chance for one of the younger guys in Wales to kind of get a full-time spot. Like, I know that's the one thing the Italians always have issues with. Like, they want their players to go abroad because they've only got 2 teams. They want guys to get a chance at Benetton and Zebre. So they want guys to go to the top 14 and to the Premiership. So I think that's going to be a positive for Wales if they can get more guys to come through, and you'll see the emergence. I mean, Jack Morgan, he's come along leaps and bounds.
He's been excellent for them.
Yeah, so if they can get more guys like that coming through, I think I think the future's looking decent. I'm not saying they're going to go and like get a Grand Slam next year or anything, but
but they're not going to be as terrible as they were this year in the Six Nations.
Yeah, I think so. I think they're tracking in the right direction anyway.
Yeah, true. So the next quarterfinal then was the big one for both of us, Ireland versus New Zealand. So you're asking me about how I was feeling after it. How were your emotions after that?
Because of the way the game finished, like it finished with a massive defensive set rather than us kind of wonder try. It was less kind of like out and out joyous celebration and more relief, that we held on, because New Zealand never went behind the game, but it kind of felt like if we do go behind, we might be going to struggle to get back in front.
I felt the same from the other side, that Ireland struggled to get just that little point, 1 point or 2 points ahead, and if they had it would have completely changed the dynamic between the teams towards the end. It would have been Ireland maybe defending and New Zealand coming at them. But talking about defence, that New Zealand defence in that game was amazing. It was probably the best defensive performance I've seen from New Zealand.
that Irish attack is not usually kind of kept that quiet.
Yeah.
Like they usually, with their wraparound moves, they're going to find a gap somewhere. They're going to find a weak shoulder. They're going to, force a mismatch with not loose forwards, like outside backs on like tight forwards or something. But it just didn't really happen, which was surprising. I mean, you had the wonder try through Aki with his great footstep, made the New Zealand defence look pretty ordinary. And then Gibson Park getting that try when Aaron Smith was in the bin. Will Jordan looked a little bit kind of lost defending in that position. But for the most part, yeah, you're right. I think New Zealand defended really admirably. I mean, they made like 200 odd tackles, which is no easy feat.
They made 100 tackles in the last quarter alone. That's just crazy.
That's insane.
Yeah. And something as well. So New Zealand, the chip over the Irish defence into that little gap a couple of times. And I when I saw that, I thought that has Joe Schmidt written all over it. That's his attention to detail, I think, that brought that one.
I think probably. I mean, I feel a little bit sorry for Ian Foster because he never gets credit for anything that happens. And when Ireland beat us down here last year, there was a lot of talk about like, Joe Schmidt, he's a bit of a one-trick pony. He doesn't adapt to the games well. Like his reputation was maybe a little bit soured with the way they went out in the last World Cup. And then he comes to New Zealand, we get and so but I think you're right. I mean, if anyone knows how to kind of help break down that Irish defence, it's going to be Joe Schmidt, and that move that's a Bowden Barrett specialty, doing that kind of thing. Down here for years. So if you're going to get someone to employ that kind of move, you might as well get him to do it.
And talking about good moves, that Will Jordan try, like just Mowanga's part in that, and then just the whole move as well was just so slick.
Yeah, went between, I think it was Sheehan and Van der Fleer, right? Like just one of those kind of
and Lowe was in there somewhere as well.
Just long enough, draws in Lowe, pops it to Will Jordan Keane, and did an admirable effort to try and get across to stop him, but couldn't quite get it done. So I mean, the game and like both sides with those huge defensive periods, like Ireland at the start, right? It went 30 odd phases, the All Blacks, and they couldn't break down the Irish defense. So honestly, like it's a brutal one for Ireland, but that game legitimately could have gone either way. It was one key move. It was that Kelleher getting isolated at the death. It was Geordie Barrett holding up, over the goal line. It's just one key moment.
Yeah, that was like for Geordie Barrett to do that. That was just something special there, because we've seen Ireland with that maul getting so many tries as well, and just to be able to get under and the fight as well, because it's not just getting under him, you then got to prevent them from getting the ball free and getting it down as well. It was great. But one thing for me, like from an Irish perspective, I want to ask you about just your opinion on it. Would you have taken Andrew Porter off earlier in the game? Because he was just conceding penalties all the time.
That's right. I mean, I know he wasn't happy with the calls, and I know Andy Farrell mentioned that he saw the decision making a different way, but it's not ultimately about what you, the prop, or you, the coach, think. If you got to play the ref, the way the calls are going, sometimes you need to just make the call. So that's probably a fair one. I mean, Andrew Porter is one of the best props in world rugby, but if he's getting pinged, sometimes you need to make the kind of hard call. Maybe Sexton as well. Maybe he needed to come off. I know that's a massive call. That was my next question. Would you throw the dice and put Crowley on? I think so. I mean, it's he wants to be out there for that entire game, obviously, and he's going to be pretty livid if he comes off. But maybe that hard call. But then, from his point of view, I guess if Crowley comes on and Ireland still lose, then Sexton's going to be forever thinking, if I'd stayed on the pitch, I could have done something different. I could have won it. But
Crowley's shown this year, like for a young man, he's got the cool head for those kind of situations as well. I don't think it would be, Ireland in the last World Cup with Carberry and Carty making some silly errors when they had chances. But I don't like. He just seems a different type of player to me. For that, I would have been the same as you. Would have thrown the dice. So, just a couple of quick questions before we end on this one. So the first one is, from my perspective, the answer for me on this question is yes. So do you think Ireland need more competition for places?
I mean, the way Andy Farrell picks his players is very much like, if you're looking at the balance of rotation and consistency, he's way more down the consistency path. He doesn't chop and change, which is, I mean, it's great in terms of getting the team cohesion and the team chemistry. And you can tell that, like in other tournaments like the Six Nations, where they have nowhere near as much time to prepare, they look a sharper outfit than the other teams. Like Wales looked, with all the changes they had, they looked all at sea, right? You've seen the difference what Wales got with, and like other teams like Fiji and whatnot have had the longer prep time than what they're used to. But yeah, I guess what it does mean is you don't quite have that same competition for places. So I mean, there's no perfect way to do it. New Zealand has gone down, back in the Graham Henry era, they went through a huge like rotational, like musical chairs kind of style. That was too far that way. So maybe just a little touch more towards a little bit more rotation. Like I know there was a big debate post the loss on on one of the Irish panels about should they have played kind of a B team against one of the other teams in the pool stages. You know what I mean? Because Ireland kept their squad pretty stable, and pretty much every other team had a game where
I think with that it was the way the fixtures
it's a hard one, because this World Cup we had the bye week, so it's, I don't know.
But I think with Ireland, the fact that the way they went through, like it was Romania up first, and they wanted to open with a statement on that. Then it was Tonga after that one, and like Ireland in the last World Cup, like I was at the Russia game, and they struggled at times in that game as well to kind of, with a B team, and maybe they had that in their minds. And then the fact that Sexton was coming back as well, kind of, forced a hand on that he had to play those games because he hasn't played since January. So
that's right.
It was maybe if one of those two games had been in between South Africa and Scotland, maybe I think changes would have been called for there at least. But last question on Ireland, New Zealand. So do you think that attitudes towards Ireland have changed in kind of the New Zealand rugby public in kind of the last year or so?
I mean, beating us down here was certainly a big statement. I think it probably has changed maybe even further back than just the kind of last year or so. I think, it's gone from being one of those ones, like we currently kind of have it with Scotland, where it's like, we should beat Scotland. It'll be a good game, but we should beat Scotland. Yeah. That's what it used to be with Ireland. They should give us a good game, but we should beat Ireland. Like we're probably not going to lose that one, but that mindset, that's absolutely gone. That's ancient history at this point.
Yeah.
It's more like what we have with like the Springboks or somebody, or that it's going to be like the game it was. Like it's going to be one big call, one big moment that's going to decide the game. So it's definitely a lot more kind of respect, I guess, in that area. I did see one of the New Zealand rugby scribes saying, Ireland has gotten arrogant and whatnot, but I think when teams are doing well, the rugby media from those countries talks them up. The New Zealand rugby media does it. The South African rugby media does it. The Irish rugby media does it. The French have been doing it. Like everybody, when you're playing well, you big up your team. That's just kind of normal. So I think we're just kind of media level kind of clickbaity stuff talking about that kind of thing. I think for the most part, like there's a pretty good respect and banter between both fan bases.
Yeah, very true. So on to the next quarterfinal, England versus Fiji. So England, they start with that Tulagi try. They pull out a bit of a lead. Then Bill Matta, the only way I could describe it was a Surveyor-esque dummy. And then he goes in for his try. And then they get it back to 20-for-all, think they're going to do it. And then England pull it out in the end.
It's been a weird one watching Fiji at this World Cup because they haven't really been Fijian in their style of play.
No.
They've been a great team at the break. Never been better at anyone else at just turning people over. Like they beat the Australians by kicking their goals. It wasn't like crazy 7 style play. Revert a little bit, and they talked about it in the build up to this game, how they wanted to get a little bit more of their kind of DNA back with this game against England, and we saw a bit more of their offloading, and they did get more breaks and whatnot. The English defense has been really stingy this World Cup, so the fact that they were able to get the 3 tries that they did, I think speaks to that, and the commitment of those guys to, like you say, come back when the match was all but dead and buried. Like if Farrell doesn't miss that 1 penalty, it would have been a 3-score game.
Yeah, exactly.
Get it back to basically the start of the game, like back to 0. On like what was it, 70 minutes? So 10 minutes.
Yeah.
It's all to play for. Like they did amazingly well to get there, but you got to give a heck of a lot of credit to England because they had that game won, and then they have to go and do it again. And they do it. They do it. Goal kicks a drop goal.
Yeah, very true. And just on the breakdown as well, Bottia, he's got to be one of the best players in the world getting over a ball. He's just so good at it, and then you can't shift him when he's there either. And I thought, other than this game, I thought Mata was kind of quiet for the Rugby World Cup, but Bottia stood out for me in the back row there. But on this one now, England, they've gone through with Fiji. Like I'm hearing, I think it's true, Fiji are going to be invited to the Rugby Championship. Is that right?
There's been rumours
about
that for a long time. So it may or may not happen. I forget how long South Africa's commitment is for the Rugby Championship. I think it's got to go, but it's not set in stone. So South Africa may at some point cast their eyes towards the Six Nations. I'm not sure. But if there is going to be a team to join the Rugby Championship outside the current 4, Fiji and Japan, I think, would be the 2 teams kind of at the top of the list.
Yeah, I think Japan got a raw deal being made Tier 1 and be the only Tier 1 nation not in a Tier 1 competition. It's
competition.
It's just like they gave them a pat on the back and that was it.
A little bit. Yeah. They were kind of at that peak during that last World Cup, but it's been a tough one with Japan.
Yeah, it has. And then there's rumors of Eddie going back there now. I think that would be a backward step, honestly, for Japan if he does. But last quarterfinal, France versus South Africa, probably saved the best for last. That was just a mental game. What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah. I mean, after the Ireland-New Zealand game, I thought there's not going to be any quarterfinals better than that one. But this one, like you say, especially that first half, is just one of the best halves of rugby you will ever see in the game itself. But I mean, especially that first half was just insane. Like it was so hard. You were seeing, I mean, Cyril Bai gets a couple of tries. I mean, who had him scoring 2 tries in a Rugby World Cup quarterfinal? If you'd asked anybody before the game, well, one team's going to get 3 tries through their forwards and one team's going to get mostly tries through their backs. Who do you think is going to be which one? It was like South Africa with Colby. Colby was incredible. Aronza,
he was
Damon Delende, but boy, they got their line speed was incredible. The South Africans and the French really struggled with the high balls, which was I think it was against Australia last year, or was it this year in a warm-up game? I can't remember, but there was one game certainly where the French had a little issues with it, and maybe I think it might have been.
I think it might have been this year because I remember Noaka Nitawase. He's just so good in the air, and the kicks were on point.
Yeah, that's right. I think he's able to kind of either he catches them or he slaps them back. You know what I mean? And
exactly.
That. Against us before as well. Ian Foster had a big whinge about it. Like he didn't think it was safe that the South African guys were going up. I mean, I think we got beaten, so of course he's having a whinge. But the fact that they were like not looking to necessarily catch it, but just contest it and slap it back, make a mistake, and they did it just so well. It was sad for the French, but man, it was just so impressive to see.
Yeah, the kicking strategies from both teams are kind of interesting because. Like coming into this in the pool stages, France kicked like 1.5 times more than than South Africa. They were the ones putting, like, the leather, kicking the leather off the ball, and they kicked the most meters in the entire tournament, like 4,000 odd meters, whereas South Africa only kicked about half of that much. But we have this, most of us have this perception that South Africa are a kicking team, but it's really France who actually kicked the ball. But then France changed that. They tried to keep the ball in field all the time rather than going for touch, and Colby and Arendse running it back really hurt them on that, I felt.
Yeah, exactly. You don't want Chesley and Colby running the ball back at you. That's just asking for trouble. But I guess they were just trying to avoid, like, the Springboks mauls from lineouts, like trying to avoid conceding more penalties and whatnot. So, but it's a 1-point game. It's really tough to look at the French and, like, be, like, super critical because, geez, they were close to winning it as well. I mean, just like the Irish, it's hard to, like, look back and go, well, if you'd done this, that, and the other, you would have won it, because they almost got it done.
They did, yeah. But something on that, like with the lineouts, was that Wogi has been one of the best at disrupting or stealing lineouts in the whole tournament, and that's why I kind of felt it was a kind of a weird tactic. But these guys, they're professional coaches, so they probably think to the nth degree beyond what we do. But did you, talking at the end there, did you think France were actually going to do it towards the end when they were pushing for the win?
Yeah, no, the South African defense still looked like it had the upper hand. Like, the line speed seemed to be making the French just uncomfortable, that the passes were a little bit rushed. I mean, Jalibert still looks like he has heaps of time on the ball, but a lot of the guys just looked that little bit awkward, which is kind of uncharacteristic from, especially that French back line, and the South African scrum was getting on top. So, what did you think of the ref? Because I know Antoine Dupont had a wee whinge about it, but he's obviously emotional after going out at the home World Cup.
So, for me, the referees in all the quarterfinals were fine. And I think with losses and stuff like this, where it is a big game for teams, it's easy to target the referee. And in my opinion, referees don't get paid enough. They're such an important part of the game, but they're underappreciated. And we nobody ever talks about a referee having a good game, or very rarely at least.
Yeah, the best you can get as a ref is that no one's really talking about you after the game.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's just an interesting one. I feel like the intensity of the pressure on refs is ramping up because, like Gatlin mentioned after their game, that the change of ref kind of hurt them. Antoine Dupont just said he didn't think the ref was up to standard. I take into account, look, he's emotional. He's a 26-year-old guy. He's just had his dreams shattered, so he's going to say things which, he's got his heart on his sleeve, so... I think Sio Khaleesi said something pretty much similar about it as well. That, look, he's not going to, take too much into it. But I thought the refereeing was mostly fine.
Yeah, me too. So just to wrap this one up, then, your favorite moment from the tournament so far?
It's maybe showing a little bit of recency bias, but that little Bowden Barrett chip over the top, which ends up with Flanganuku going over in the corner, that's poetry emotion.
Moment,
That was just unbelievable. If Ireland end up winning that game, you'd probably look at the Bundy Aki one, just the footwork to make the New Zealand defenders look like amateur players at that moment. Some bits great. Once Colby charging down that conversion was just
that was magic. Yeah,
insane. It's been some crazy moments. But as a Kiwi, I'd probably have to go with Bodie's little effort.
Okay, well, that's a good one. So, thanks for chatting with us today. And as I said, everyone, go check out Mark's channel.
Cheers, Mark, man. Good to catch up.